This is my new wife. I don't love you anymore. You're just a poor banana seller.
She paid his school fees, but after graduation, what he did to her will break your heart and leave you in tears, and renew your hope. Ophelia met Paul when he was still struggling to find his direction. He was intelligent and ambitious, but he lived from one small opportunity to the next. Ophelia admired the way he spoke about his future. Paul told her clearly that his greatest dream was to attend university and build a stable life. At first, Ophelia supported him in small ways. She bought him meals when he could not afford them. She paid for his transport when he had interviews. She even helped him prepare documents for school applications. Paul used to hold her hands and say, "When I rise, you will rise with me. I will never forget this." When Paul finally gained admission into the university, the reality became harsh. His fees were high. His rent increased. He needed books, food, and basic supplies. Paul started sounding worried and ashamed whenever he spoke about money. Ophelia did not want him to carry the burden alone. She sold her favorite clothes first. She started with the ones she wore to special events and saved the rest. Then she sold more. One of the dresses she sold was the one she once told Paul she wanted to wear on their engagement day. When her friend asked why she would sell something so personal, Ophelia replied, "If he succeeds, there will be a better day than that dress." To raise steady money, Ophelia began hawking bananas every day. She woke early, walked long distances, and returned late with tired feet. She sent Paul money consistently, sometimes 2 times in 1 week when he called and said he was short. The town noticed. People spoke openly. A group of women at the market laughed at her. One of them said, "A young woman should build herself, not build a man." Ophelia kept quiet and continued walking. She told herself she was not wasting her life. She believed she was investing in love, and she trusted the promises Paul had made. But deep down, she could already feel how lonely sacrifice could be when the whole town watched and judged. Paul's first semester at the university was harder than Ophelia expected. He called her often, and almost every call ended with a new need. Sometimes it was for textbooks. Other times it was for rent, food, or transport for a compulsory school program. Ophelia never complained, but her life began to shrink. She stopped buying anything for herself. She stopped attending social gatherings. Even when she fell sick, she forced herself out of bed to sell bananas because she feared Paul would call and she would have nothing to send. One afternoon, Ophelia's friend, Mercy, followed her to the market. Mercy watched her set her banana tray down, arrange the fruits carefully, and begin moving around to find customers. "You are working like a married woman with 4 children," Mercy said bluntly. "When will you rest?" Ophelia forced a small smile. "I will rest when he graduates." Mercy looked at her with concern. "And what if he changes?" Ophelia's face tightened for a second, but she quickly shook her head. "Paul is not that kind of man." That same week, Paul called her and sounded irritated. "Ophelia, I told you yesterday I needed money for my department dues. I have to pay it today." Ophelia gripped the phone tightly. "I sent what I had yesterday." "It is not enough," Paul replied. "Other people are paying. I cannot be the only one delaying." His words cut her. Paul had never spoken to her like that before. She wanted to cry, but she swallowed it. "Give me time," she said softly. "I will find a way." She worked harder. She stayed longer in the streets. She walked to another busy area to sell faster. By evening, her whole body was trembling. As she crossed the roadside, her legs suddenly failed her. She collapsed beside a small shop, her tray tipping and spilling bananas onto the ground. A kind older woman rushed to her and helped her sit up. "You are suffering too much," the woman said. "Who are you killing yourself for?" Ophelia's lips shook. "My boyfriend. He is in school." The woman stared at her for a long moment. Then she said calmly, "Love is good, but wisdom is better. Make sure you do not build a house for someone who will lock you outside." Ophelia nodded out of respect, but inside she rejected the warning. She believed Paul loved her. She believed sacrifice would be rewarded. And for that belief, she continued giving everything she had. The years moved faster than Ophelia expected. Paul's calls became less frequent, but his needs never stopped. Each time he asked for help, Ophelia found a way. She borrowed money and paid it back slowly. She sold more clothes until only a few simple outfits remained. She kept telling herself it was temporary. Then the day Paul graduated finally came. Ophelia did not have money for a big celebration, but she wanted to mark the moment. She cooked a small meal and wrapped it neatly. She even bought a cheap congratulatory card and wrote a message inside it. I believed in you when life was hard. I still believe in you now. When Paul arrived in town, people rushed toward him with excitement. Some greeted him with respect as if his certificate had already changed his status. Ophelia waited until evening before going to see him. She did not want to disturb him while he was receiving visitors. When she finally entered the house where he stayed, Paul looked up briefly and nodded. Ophelia smiled and stepped closer. "Congratulations," she said warmly. "I am proud of you." Paul took the food package from her hands without much interest. "Thank you," he replied. Ophelia sat down carefully. Her heart was full. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Have you thought about our plans?" Paul placed the food aside and exhaled slowly, as if he had been waiting for that question. "Ophelia," he began, "I need you to understand something." Her smile faded. "Understand what?" Paul's eyes turned cold. "I cannot marry a poor woman." The words hit her like a slap. Ophelia blinked. "Paul, what are you saying? I am the same person you loved." Paul leaned back and crossed his arms. "You supported me, yes. You are a good woman. I will not deny that. But love is not enough. I have worked hard and I am entering a different level. I need someone who matches my future." Ophelia's throat tightened. "So you are ashamed of me?" Paul shrugged slightly. "Call it whatever you want. But I will not pretend. I cannot bring you into my life as my wife." Ophelia's hands began shaking. She stared at him as if she was watching a stranger. "All those years," she whispered. "Everything I sold. Every day I hawked bananas. Was I doing it for a man who would throw me away?" Paul stood up, impatient. "Do not start crying. I am not your husband. I am not responsible for your emotions." Ophelia could not speak again. Her chest felt heavy, and her eyes burned with tears she refused to release. Paul turned his face away as if her pain was an inconvenience. And Ophelia finally understood that education had not only changed Paul's status. It had changed his heart. Foster heard about the breakup the next morning. He did not hear it from Paul. He heard it from people discussing it openly, as if Ophelia's humiliation was public entertainment. He went straight to Paul's new apartment. When Paul opened the door, Foster saw a suitcase near the wall, and a new pair of expensive shoes on the floor. "You already started living like a rich man," Foster said as he walked in. Paul gave a short laugh. "I deserve it." Foster did not sit down. He stood with his arms folded and looked Paul in the face. "I heard what you did to Ophelia." Paul's smile faded. So, Foster repeated. "That girl suffered for you. You were eating because she was selling bananas. You were reading because she was selling her clothes. You cannot treat her like she meant nothing." Paul walked away from him and poured water into a cup. "I did not force her to do anything." Foster followed him. "You encouraged her. You promised her marriage. You cannot pretend you did not benefit from her loyalty." Paul drank the water slowly. Foster listened carefully. "Ophelia is a good woman." "No. But I do not love her anymore." Foster stared at him. "Love does not disappear because someone is poor. It disappears because someone becomes proud." Paul placed the cup down with force. "Do not insult me." "I am not insulting you," Foster replied firmly. "I am reminding you. If you abandon that girl, you will regret it." Paul stepped closer with anger in his eyes. "Regret what?" I'm starting my career. I need a woman who looks like success. Not someone the town pities. Foster took a deep breath. Then help her grow. If you think she is not educated enough, sponsor her schooling. Let her improve herself. Paul's face twisted as if the idea offended him. Stop talking nonsense. It is not nonsense, Foster insisted. That woman gave you her youth. At least give her a chance to rebuild her life with dignity. Paul pointed at Foster. Do not tell me what to do with my money. She is not my responsibility. Foster's voice lowered, but it became sharper. Paul, do you hear yourself? You are rejecting the very person who helped you become what you are. Paul turned away, clearly done with the conversation. My decision is final. Foster stepped toward the door slowly. One day, you will remember her sacrifices when you are alone. Paul laughed mockingly. If you care so much, go and marry her yourself. Foster froze for a moment, shocked by the cruelty behind the words. He said nothing else. He walked out quietly, but his heart was heavy. Because deep down, Foster knew Paul was walking into a future he did not understand. The next day, Ophelia woke up with swollen eyes. She had not slept well. Her mind kept replaying Paul's words again and again. She forced herself to stand up, wash her face, and go outside, hoping movement would calm her heart. Before midday, she saw Paul approaching her house. For 1 second, hope returned. She thought maybe Foster had spoken to him already. She thought maybe Paul had come to apologize. But the moment she looked closely, her stomach tightened. Paul was not alone. A young woman walked beside him, dressed neatly, holding a small handbag. Her posture was confident, and her gaze moved around the compound as if she was inspecting it. She did not look like someone who had come with peace. She looked like someone who had come to claim a position. Paul entered as if he owned the place. I am here for my things, he said. Ophelia's lips trembled. Paul, who is she? Paul answered without hesitation. This is Natasha. Natasha gave a small polite smile that carried no kindness. Good afternoon, she said calmly. Ophelia's heart beat faster. Your girlfriend. Paul did not deny it. He walked past Ophelia and began opening boxes and checking corners of the room. Ophelia followed him, confused and shaking. So it is true, she whispered. You already replaced me. Paul folded his clothes and threw them into a bag. I did not come here to discuss feelings, he replied coldly. Natasha remained near the doorway, watching quietly. Her eyes moved from Ophelia's worn slippers to her simple dress. She seemed to be measuring her. When Paul was done packing, he lifted his bag and turned to leave. Ophelia stepped in front of him, blocking the way. Paul, please, she said, her voice cracking. After everything. Do not throw me away like this. Paul tried to move past her, but Ophelia suddenly dropped to her knees. Natasha's eyebrows lifted slightly, but she said nothing. Ophelia held Paul's trousers tightly. If you cannot marry me as your first wife, take me as your second wife, she begged. I will not disturb your new life. I will just stay quietly. Please. Paul stared at her with disgust. Stand up, he said. You are embarrassing yourself. I am already broken, Ophelia cried. I have nothing else to protect. Paul pulled his leg away forcefully. Then he reached into his pocket, brought out money, and threw it at her. This is a refund, he said. For everything you wasted on me. The money scattered on the ground. Ophelia froze, staring at it like it was poison. Paul grabbed Natasha's hand and walked away, leaving Ophelia on her knees, surrounded by pain and silence. Ophelia remained on the ground long after Paul and Natasha left. She did not chase them. She did not scream. Her body felt heavy, as if her strength had been poured out onto the floor with the scattered money. Slowly, she reached for the cash and picked it up. Her hands were shaking. Not because she wanted it, but because she could not believe that was what Paul reduced her sacrifices to. When she finally stood up, she carried the money inside, sat on the edge of her small bed, and stared at it for several minutes. Her mind moved in circles. That evening, Mercy came to see her. Mercy took one look at Ophelia's face and knew something terrible had happened. "I heard Paul came back," Mercy said quietly. "People are talking." Ophelia did not respond. Mercy's voice grew tense. "Did he really bring another woman?" Ophelia nodded once. Mercy sat down beside her. "And he left you like that?" Ophelia's lips parted slightly, but her voice was weak. "He threw money at me," she said. "He called it a refund." Mercy covered her mouth in shock. "Refund?" Ophelia's eyes were dry now. Her tears had finished earlier. "Yes," she continued. "As if I was doing business with him. As if I was selling love." Mercy looked at the money in her hands. "At least keep it," Mercy said. "You need it. You have sacrificed too much already." Ophelia stood up slowly. "I will not use it," she replied. Mercy watched her, confused. "What do you mean?" Ophelia walked outside with the money in her palm. Mercy followed her in silence. Ophelia moved through the street like someone walking without a destination, until she reached the roadside where beggars often stayed. She stopped in front of an old blind man and placed money into his hands. Then she walked to a woman sitting with 2 children and gave her more. She continued until the money was gone. Some people watched and whispered. A few shook their heads as if she had proved their insults right. One man said, "She is still foolish. Paul threw her away and she is still giving." Ophelia did not answer them. When she returned home, Mercy stood in the doorway with her arms folded. "You gave everything away," Mercy said, disbelief in her voice. "You could have used that to start again." Ophelia looked at her calmly. "If I eat that money, it will feel like I deserved what he did to me," she replied. "I did not support him for profit. I supported him because I loved him." That night, Ophelia packed her few remaining clothes into a small bag. Her hands moved quickly, but her heart was slow. She whispered to herself, "I cannot stay here and die slowly." And for the first time, Ophelia decided she would leave the town behind, even if she had no clear future ahead. Ophelia's bag was almost full when she heard a knock at the door. First she ignored it. She assumed it was Mercy returning with more advice. But the knock came again, firmer this time. Ophelia wiped her face, walked to the door and opened it. Foster stood there. He looked exhausted, like someone who had been searching for answers all day and found none. In his hands, he carried a small bag of food supplies and a sealed envelope. Ophelia stared at him, surprised. "Foster, I heard you are leaving," Foster said quietly. Ophelia stepped back to allow him inside. "Who told you?" "People talk too much," Foster replied. He glanced at her packed bag and nodded slowly. "So it is true." Ophelia did not deny it. She sat down carefully, as though any wrong movement might break her. "I cannot stay here," she said. "This town is too small for pain. Everywhere I go, I see his face." Foster placed the food supplies on the table. "I do not blame you," he said. "But running away will not heal you. It will only bury you in silence." Ophelia's eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you want me to do then? Stay and be mocked every day?" Foster opened the envelope and placed it in front of her. "This is not pity," he said. "It is support. Use it for transport or food, or anything that helps you breathe again." Ophelia pushed the envelope back. "I cannot take money from you," she said. "I have already suffered enough because of what I did for Paul." Foster's tone remained calm, but it carried weight. "Ophelia, what happened to you is not because you helped. It is because you helped the wrong man." The statement made her chest tighten. Foster leaned forward. "Do not punish yourself for having a good heart," he continued. "You loved sincerely. Paul failed you. That is his shame, not yours." Ophelia stared at the floor for a long time. "I feel like I wasted my life," she whispered. "No," Foster replied. "You proved you are loyal. That is rare. And I refuse to watch you disappear like you never mattered." Ophelia looked up. Why do you care so much? Foster hesitated briefly, then spoke with honesty. Because you supported my friend when nobody else did. I watched you carry the burden alone. And I know you deserve better than this ending. Ophelia's lips trembled again. Paul will not come back, she said. Foster nodded. Then let me speak to him one last time, he said firmly. If he still refuses to correct his mistake, at least you will know you did not leave without closure. Ophelia wanted to reject the offer, but something in Foster's voice felt steady. For the first time in days, she felt a small sense of safety. She nodded slowly. All right, she agreed. I will wait. Foster stood up. Good, he said. Do not pack any more tonight. Rest. Tomorrow I will face him again. And as Foster left, Ophelia sat quietly, wondering why a man who owed her nothing was fighting harder for her than the man she sacrificed everything for. The next morning, Foster went to Paul's apartment early. He did not call ahead. He knew that if he gave Paul time to prepare excuses, the conversation would end in avoidance. He needed Paul to face the truth directly. Paul opened the door wearing a neatly pressed shirt, already looking like someone who believed he had outgrown his past. When he saw Foster, his expression hardened. You again? Paul asked. Foster stepped inside without waiting to be invited. Yes, me again, he replied. Because you are still behaving like a man who has forgotten where he came from. Paul shut the door with force. Foster, I will not repeat myself. I am done with Ophelia. Foster stared at him steadily. And Ophelia is not done with pain, he said. You destroyed her dignity and walked away like it meant nothing. Paul scoffed. I gave her money. That was not kindness, Foster replied. That was humiliation. Paul moved closer, his face tense. What do you want from me? Do you want me to drag her into my future like a burden? Foster shook his head slowly. You talk about her like she is a problem. But that woman built you when you were nothing. She stood by you when people laughed at you. If you cannot marry her, at least help her rebuild her life with respect. Paul's jaw tightened. Respect does not feed my reputation, he said. Foster raised his voice slightly. Your reputation is empty if your character is rotten. Paul's eyes widened in anger. Watch your mouth. Foster continued, refusing to back down. Send her to school, he said. Support her education. Let her improve herself. She deserves that much from you. Paul stared at him as if Foster had insulted him personally. So now you want me to train Ophelia like a child so she can fit into my world? You owe her something, Foster replied. Paul pointed at Foster aggressively. I owe her nothing. I did not force her. She chose to waste her life. Foster's voice dropped, filled with disappointment. Paul, you will regret saying that. Paul laughed mockingly. Regret. I am moving forward. You are the one stuck in the past. Foster took one step closer. This is not about the past. It is about who you are becoming, he said. Paul walked to the door and swung it open. Get out, he ordered. I am tired of you acting like her lawyer. Foster hesitated. Paul. Paul shouted louder. Leave. Foster walked out slowly, controlling his anger. But the moment he stepped outside, Paul called after him with bitter sarcasm. If you care so much, go and marry Ophelia. Foster stopped for a moment. He turned and looked at Paul. His voice was calm, but his eyes were serious. You just spoke without thinking, Foster said. But one day, those words will return to you. Paul slammed the door. Foster stood outside for a long time, breathing slowly. He had tried everything. Paul had chosen pride over loyalty. And as Foster walked away, a thought formed quietly in his mind. Maybe Ophelia's story did not have to end in loss. Foster returned to Ophelia that afternoon. The moment she saw his face, she already knew the answer. He did not need to speak. Ophelia stood quietly beside her packed bag. He refused, she said. Foster nodded. Not only did he refuse, he replied. He insulted you again. He acted like your sacrifices were nothing. Ophelia's shoulders dropped. She sat down slowly, like someone whose last hope had just been taken away. So that is it, she whispered. It ends like this. Foster sat across from her. It does not have to end in destruction, he said firmly. You have suffered enough. Now you must rebuild. Ophelia stared at him with tired eyes. With what strength, she asked. I have nothing left. You still have your dignity, Foster answered. You did not destroy anyone. You did not cheat anyone. You loved sincerely. That is not weakness. Ophelia remained silent, but Foster continued visiting her. First he came every few days. Then it became almost daily. He helped her get back into her banana business, but this time he did it differently. He introduced her to a supplier and helped her buy in bulk so she could make more profit without walking long distances every day. Some people in the town began to notice the change. Mercy pulled Ophelia aside one evening. Foster is becoming too involved, she warned. People will talk. Ophelia replied calmly. They already talked when I was suffering. I will not live my life in fear of rumors. As weeks passed, Ophelia began to smile again. It was not forced. It was small but real. She stopped blaming herself for Paul's choices. She stopped waking up at night to relive humiliation. One day, while they were closing the shop after business, Ophelia asked Foster quietly, "Why do you keep helping me?" Foster looked at her for a long time before answering. "Because you deserve peace," he said. "And because I started caring more than I expected." Ophelia's heart raced. "Caring how?" she asked. Foster did not hide his truth. "I love you," he said. "Not because you suffered. I loved you even before this happened. I only never spoke because Paul was my friend." Ophelia stared at him, shocked. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not look away. "I am scared," she admitted. "I trusted once, and it destroyed me." Foster's voice softened. "Then trust slowly," he said. "I will wait." It was not sudden. It was not dramatic. Love returned to Ophelia gently, like healing after injury. Months later, they married quietly in a simple private ceremony. No announcements, no noise, just a commitment built on respect. And Ophelia, for the first time in a long time, felt chosen. Paul enjoyed his new life at first. He rented a better apartment and changed his wardrobe. He moved through town with pride, speaking about his job as if it made him untouchable. Natasha also enjoyed the attention. She liked being seen beside a man with money. But it did not take long before Paul's expectations started showing. One evening, Paul returned home tired and found Natasha sitting comfortably, scrolling on her phone. "Did you cook?" Paul asked. Natasha did not look up. "Why should I cook?" she replied. "There is food outside. Order something." Paul's face tightened. "Natasha, I work all day. A woman should support her home." Natasha finally looked at him and smiled faintly. "If you want a housekeeper, employ one. I am not your servant." That argument became the beginning of many. Paul expected obedience. Natasha expected comfort without responsibility. They were together, but they were not building anything. The final breakup happened when Paul publicly complained about her to his colleagues during a work gathering. Natasha heard it and confronted him in front of everyone. "So you want to shame me the same way you shamed Ophelia?" she asked coldly. Paul froze, embarrassed. Natasha turned and left him that night. She blocked his calls and refused to return. Paul suddenly found himself alone in the life he claimed was better. Days became quiet. His apartment felt empty. He had money but no peace. And for the first time, Paul began remembering the past clearly. He remembered Ophelia waking early to sell bananas. He remembered her voice, her patience, her loyalty. One weekend, Paul finally decided to find her. When he arrived at her old home, he met Mercy outside. Mercy looked at him with disgust. "You are late," she said. Paul ignored the insult. "Where is Ophelia?" he asked. Mercy pointed down the street. "Go and see for yourself." Paul walked quickly, expecting to find Ophelia still broken and waiting. But when he reached the address Mercy gave, he froze. It was Foster's house. Before Paul could question it, the door opened, and Ophelia stepped out. She looked healthy. Her face was calm. Her stomach was visibly large with pregnancy. Behind her, Foster appeared, holding a bag of baby items. Paul's knees felt weak. "Ophelia," he whispered. Ophelia looked at him without fear. "What do you want here?" she asked. Paul's eyes filled with tears. "Foster," he said, turning in pain. "You betrayed me." Foster's voice was steady. "I warned you," he replied. "You refused to listen. So I married her." Paul stepped forward. "You cannot do this to me," he cried. Foster pointed toward the gate. "Leave my house," he ordered. Paul turned back to Ophelia, desperate. "Please talk to me." Ophelia took one step forward and spoke firmly, with no trembling in her voice. "Paul, leave. I begged you once, and you threw money at me. I will never kneel to you again." Then she turned away. Paul was chased out of that place, not with insults, but with the consequence of his own pride. As you watch this video to the end, receive these prayers. May God heal every wound in your heart that people cannot see. May He comfort you in the places where you cry silently, and may He restore the parts of you that were broken by betrayal, rejection, and disappointment. If you have ever sacrificed for someone and they repaid you with disrespect, may heaven defend you. May God repay you with honor where you were once ashamed. May He lift you in the same place where you were mocked. And may your tears become a testimony that will silence everyone who laughed at your pain. I pray that every relationship meant to destroy you will be removed from your life. Every manipulative person, every selfish heart, every wicked partner, every false promise. May God expose them early and deliver you completely. May the Lord rebuild your confidence. May He give you strength to walk away from what is hurting you, even when your heart still loves it. May He give you wisdom to choose peace over attachment, and value over desperation. For anyone watching who feels abandoned, may God send you help in human form, just like Foster came at the right time. May your destiny helpers locate you. May genuine love find you. May your future not be delayed because of your past mistakes. I pray that before this year ends, you will not remain where people left you. You will rise again. You will love again. You will smile again. You will succeed again. And when your season of restoration comes, may you never beg for love again. May you be chosen, honored, and protected. In Jesus' name, amen. If this prayer touched your heart, type amen in the comments, and may your testimony come quickly.